Hello. I hope you enjoyed the stories and get a good scare. They are based on real experiences. Remember, just because you can't see it does not mean it isn't watching you. If you like these, please share and check out my other stories on my channel. And if you really like the scary, my book, The Make Believe in the Boogeyman Chronicles, is a true story about kids' struggle to survive an encounter with a real monster and ghosts. Available on Amazon. Boo you later.
Peekaboo, I see you.
Came the whisper. Rolling over in his bed, Dylan squinted his eyes, trying to see through the dark. Dad? He asked groggily. No response. His dad worked nights. No one should be here. Reaching over to the nightstand, he flooded the room with light by turning on the lamp. Nothing. Groaning, he pulled a blanket over his head and was back asleep in less than a minute, forgetting to turn off the light. Walking home after school, Dylan mentioned to his friend Carter about the weird whisper. Carter replies in a low, menacing tone with laughter. Fear the Whisper Man, because he comes from the darkness, seeking you out while whispering, Peekaboo, I see you. Dylan picked up the broken pieces of his jaw from the sidewalk. You're joking. Seeing Dylan's shocked reaction, Carter laughed hard. He must have heard the story. Dylan shook his head. No. Where did he hear a story like that? Carter responded with a careless shrug of his shoulders. Around. There's more than one local ghost story in this town. It is about the only thing to talk about when bored to death, huddled around a fire when camping. Dylan mumbled, Legends come from some truth, don't they? Puffing impatiently, Carter teased, What's wrong with you? It isn't real, just another urban legend. But Dylan puzzled over the dream and its connection to that legend. Just think it's weird that I don't remember hearing a story like that, and then I dream about it. Don't you think that's weird? Carter slapped Dylan a little hard on the back. You must have heard it. That's why you dreamed about it. Let it go, man. Dylan gave in. I guess so. A few nights later, Dylan dreamed about the whispering.
Peekaboo, I see you.
Over and over. He woke up scared, something he hadn't done in years. Taking a deep breath to calm down, he repeated to himself it was just a dream. A horrible, low-pitched whisper, almost sounding giddy, came from the darkness.
Peekaboo, I see you.
Now that was real. Someone was in the room with them. Instant panic attack. Almost knocking the lamp over in his haste, he managed to turn it on without breaking it. He thought he saw movement near his closet door. Moving fast, Dylan grabbed the lamp and, pulling off the shade, pointed the bulb's light in the direction of the shadows. Hearing a shuffle as if a dog's feet were scrambling too fast and were slipping on the slick wood floor, he moved off the bed to investigate. Sneaking up to the closet with one of his shoes in his hand, ready to smack down anything coming at him, he looked behind the door and inside. Nothing. Feeling a little silly for doing so, he even checked under his bed. No one was in his room. In the morning, his dad found him asleep in the living room. The following Saturday, Dylan met Carter at the baseball park. Standing next to an empty bleacher, Dylan told Carter what he experienced the night before. You should have heard the sound of that sound. I am not kidding. Creepy doesn't even come close. I've been sleeping with the lights on ever since. Come on, Dylan, you're making this up. No way is the Whisper Man real. Carter was having a hard time believing his friend. The legend just wasn't true. You know what, Carter? Dylan moved in Carter's personal space. I don't care what you believe, he said angrily. Sighing heavily, Carter put his hand on Dylan's shoulder. No need to get mad. Come on, I'm taking you to see someone. She knows a lot about the old wives' tales from around here. Dylan choked out. Old wives' tales? Ghost stories, whatever. Listen, she may be a little bit of a nut, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Besides, she's my aunt. I trust her, Carter insisted. Carter's aunt turned out to be a petite, quiet 94-year-old lady who had the style of a little bit of hippie and some new age thrown in, going by all the crystals in her living room. Sitting Dylan down, she had him tell his story. She watched him closely without saying a word as he talked. Once finished, and with a lump in his throat, Dylan asked, "What is it?" "The Whisper Man," she replied without blinking an eye. Dylan's inside voice asked, "Was she serious? The Whisper Man was real?" Half laughing, he couldn't believe he was asking. "So, what does it want?" She waved a hand in front of her, saying, "What do all hunters want?" Dylan cringed at the image that popped into his head of the deer his dad had shot last summer. He wasn't laughing anymore. "It's hunting me?" "You heard the whispers. He wants you to know he's there, and with each encounter, he is closer to his prey. It's how he hunts." It was getting on Dylan's nerves at how casual she was talking about it. Dylan couldn't keep the edge out of his tongue. "How do I stop it hunting me?" "You don't. Can't fight something that isn't there." And with those words, she got up and went into the kitchen, indicating the conversation was over with. "Well, what does that mean?" he yelled at her. She never turned around, never responded, just went back to cooking. At home, in his basement, Dylan shouted into the air his anger and frustration. "This can't be for real. It's happening to me, and I don't believe it. And your aunt is a damn coot." Carter gently reminded him, "Sorry about that. Told you she was kind of nuts." Dylan's face tightened even more in anger, and his next words dripped with venom. "Oh yeah, did I forget to say thank you? Can't fight something that isn't there. Give me a break. What the hell does she mean by that?" He was pretty pissed because he was actually scared. Carter tried to sound brave. "It means you don't sleep without the lights on ever again." 3 days later, Carter had come up with a plan. He heaved a heavy bag onto Dylan's bed. Dylan watched as Carter unloaded all different sizes of flashlights, batteries, candles, lighters, fishing line, and some empty Coke cans. Carter put out a gray box about the size of an electric razor. "I borrowed my dad's stun gun." "I can't believe you brought a stun gun." Dylan was in awe. He had never seen one in person. Carter answered impatiently, "You wanted me to help, remember? This is me helping. Am I right?" Dylan thought for a moment. "Okay, how does it work?" "Whoever or whatever it is, it has to be pretty close for you to use it," Carter warned. Dylan eyed the device in Carter's hand. "How close?" Carter pushed a button, and an electric light blue arch was seen between two prongs coming out from one side. "Close enough to touch him." Dylan winced. "That's close. But what if it's my dad?" Carter shook his head. "Listen, if he's close enough for you to touch him, he's close enough to know if it's your dad. Stun him if he's not." Taking the stunner, Dylan switched off and on a couple of times, memorized by the blue arch. "The best defense is a defense," Carter explained. "Besides, having all this should make you feel safer. And oh, by the way, if it is the Whisper Man, try to get a picture." They spent the rest of the afternoon setting up tripwires tied to cans to make sure Dylan woke if anyone crossed his floor. Whoever was sneaking into his room was going to get a surprise or a shock, depending how close he got. Feeling more relaxed than he had in days, Dylan was able to fall asleep within minutes that evening. The horrifying whisper woke him.
Peekaboo, I see you.
Dylan's eyes flew open and his hand reached for the stunner he had stashed under his pillow. The cans were tripped as he watched the flashlights go out one at a time, leaving the room dark.
Peekaboo, I see you.
The laughing whispering sent waves of fear down Dylan's back. He pretended to be brave as he held the stunner in front of him, trying to keep his hand steady. Every instinct screamed at him to run. He was scared out of his mind. The next whisper was too close for comfort, and he thought he could see a shape near his bed. That was it. He reached toward the lamp to turn it on. As the light came on, the table was crushed, breaking the lamp, and the light went out. He screamed and screamed and screamed. The neighbors reported his screams to the police. Dylan's body was found with his back up against one of his bedroom walls and 2 feet off the floor. Like he had been pinned so hard, his body was slightly stuck. As one of the officers reached to touch him, it fell on the floor. His face, a frozen mask of terror, his mouth open as if he was still screaming. His eyes had turned milky white, and his face muscles so locked up, the EMTs were unable to close his eyelids. There was a lot of bruising on his chest, but no marks were visible indicating what had caused them. As they carried him out on the stretcher, the EMTs commented on how light his body weight was. The newspapers later reported it as a heart attack. On camping trips, sitting around the fire, Carter shares the story of the Whisper Man.
Peekaboo, I see you.
My reflection. After interviewing for a job on the second floor, I was about to walk into the lift when this awful feeling of doom stopped me. Looking inside the crowded box, I glanced at the shiny metal wall in the back and saw my reflection. Something wasn't quite right. The face staring back at me looked scared. My head was shaking no, and my hands were waving me away. But my arms were down by my side, one holding a folded newspaper and the other my briefcase. My head was not moving back or forth either. Frozen to the spot, all I could do was stare as my brain tried to process the unbelievable scene. One of the men asked gruffly if I was getting on. With a polite no thank you, I slowly back up and the doors closed. So taken aback by my reflection, here I was, a grown man practically running down the stairs in fear. The next day, a local newspaper reported on a strange missing persons story. It was about the building I had my interview at. Same day, same time. According to the article, witnesses on the second floor swear Lift B was full with 9 people on their way down to the first floor. After arriving, the doors opened, but it was empty. The escape hatch had not been used, and the doors never opened until it reached the bottom. The people inside just vanished, and it got even stranger. The clothes, along with personal items like purses and wallets the missing had been wearing, were found on the floor of the lift in pieces, like they had been through a shredder, but there was no blood indicating anyone had been hurt. The building was searched inside and out, but they were nowhere to be found. 6 men and 3 women gone. Where would they go and without their clothes? What gave me the shivers was I had to be one of the last people to see them. Lift B was the one I was going to get on. I turned down a job offer, wanting nowhere near that lift, and I've been avoiding them whenever possible since. I have no explanation as how my reflection in a lift was possible, only that it saved my life. The fireplace. My cousin Robin's house has to be haunted. It was an old fixer-upper when she bought it, but Robin was proud of it, always working on projects to get it looking good again. One of the reasons I didn't like her home was I felt like I was never alone, always looking over my shoulder, half expecting someone to be there. And the living room with the fireplace had a fire in it all year round because the room was never warm, even in the middle of summer when the rest of the house was 100 degrees. Robin needs my dad's help from time to time, who in turn enlists my help when needed. So there we were, hanging sheetrock in her living room, when my dad went outside to cut a piece. I was playing a handheld game, Space Invaders, waiting for his return, when I heard a scratching, sounding like it came from the fireplace. Not caring, I ignored it, but it kept getting louder. I walk over to the hearth and kind of stick my head inside to look, being mindful of the coals. There was just darkness. If there was any animal up in the chimney, I couldn't see it. Leaning back against the fireplace mantel, I continued to play my game. That damn scratching again. Glancing back toward the hearth, I watch as a solid black hand comes snaking out of the chimney, its fingers reaching far beyond normal as it stretches to grab my wrist at lightning speed. It was so cold it burned. Before I could even react, it let go and snakes back up the chimney. Turning around out of that room so fast, I ran right smack into my dad, almost knocking him down. I couldn't tell him what happened without sounding crazy, so never said a word. We finished the work, and in no way did I ever go back inside our house again. Fast forwarded a couple of years, and one day while Robin was over at my place, I just happened to mention a scratching I heard from her chimney. I had never seen anyone's eyes go so wide and round. She shared that after moving in, she kept hearing scratching too, so I had it cleaned and a lid put on top to keep the animals out. It didn't help. The scratching continued. After her chimney was rebuilt when it was destroyed by a lightning strike last year, she could still hear it. No one else ever reported hearing the noise, so she never mentioned it. I told her my whole experience, explaining it was why I never went back into her house. We decided there was definitely something paranormal going on. Robin really didn't want to know, and truth be told, either did I.